what could we be, given that we are animals still, we're biological, we're not going to become machines, you know, but we have this higher brain capacity and this ability to use that brain capacity to relate in an incredible way, you know. So, you know, where could we be? What could we be?
Well, I think if we take it to the nth degree and really look at that question, I mean, it's a great question. Where could we be? It's something that I think many wouldn't believe is possible. We think of some of the movies, so to speak, that talk about telepathy and utopia and beauty and people living in harmony. I do believe that we have that potential. What I've studied about the human system, and you know, we getting into other things that I tend to not talk about as much, but intergalactic civilizations and other places where I've read and witnessed, not witnessed personally, but just things are at a level where there's no competition, there's no even speech. We have this, and I've worked with this, you know, this notion that we don't have higher powers than what we see here. I think really, I personally want others to start to look at. I've been studying over the past years. Have you ever come across Lynn McTaggart, The Field? Does that ring a bell to you? Did you ever watch the movie What the Bleep? It was a documentary on quantum physics.
No.
Anyway, you know, she talks about in her books, one of them is called The Field, one is called The Power of Eight. She's a reporter, and she just landed into this trail of studying the human capacity to have powers to intend things.
Right.
And this was actually looked at a long time ago with the power of group prayer and group intention. I mean, this is why we meditate. Not, you know, people have group meditations globally now to help heal the planet. That's not just because someone decided, oh, this might be a cool thing to do.
It's a nice gesture. Yeah.
It's not just that. It's like when you look at the old research, which really got shut down from a lot of scientists, they had some pretty conclusive evidence that shows that you can intend and change things with your mind. I believe in psychic capacity, but when to be able to have that higher level means that the physical biology has to be well. If our system isn't working well internally, it's hard to get to those next levels of evolution, if we want to call it that. And so it's so difficult when all we know is struggle and strife and survival and paying the bills and meeting our rent payments and all these things. But I do believe, I hope that we can get to a point where we're about creation, we're about connection. We're like those hunter-gatherers on the fields with our children, eating, foraging, hunting, dancing, creating art. We can't go back to that the way it was, right? I don't think we're just going to bulldoze all of our homes and like get dirt and start planting things everywhere. I don't think that's going to happen. However, what I have seen is that, yes, we live in these boxes that are homes and we're caged, but when we can connect with our biology and really work to get out of that survival, this doesn't feel as like an entrapment. It actually, I don't feel in my home that I'm boxed, that I'm caged. You know, I can connect to the sky and the trees that I see out there. I don't feel like there's a wall here, but we see it as that. But if we energetically can connect with what is around us, we start to realize that, you know, not to sound too woo-woo, but I will, it's all energy, it's all different vibrations, and we can move through things and intend a lot of goodness. So that's kind of a weird way of saying my viewpoint, my vision is that we can be amazing as a society, as a humanity, and it requires more of us becoming what I would say regulated in our nervous system, regulated in how we connect with others, with nature, with animals. Peter Levine, one of my mentors who founded Somatic Experiencing, he has said many times over again, and he's a very spiritual man, he is into the energies, he's into archetypes and our ancestors and such. And he doesn't talk about it very much, but he believes in it. But he's said true human enlightenment will happen when all human beings on this planet have a regulated nervous system. That's a big statement, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And yet, if we have, right, if you just could drop into that, if that were true, there will be no violence, no war, no abuse of our bodies, no abuse of the land. We would know how to raise our children, and it would technically be utopic, whatever that means.
Yeah.
But but we don't know it because we haven't felt it. We haven't seen it in enough community. We're still figuring out what community even is. We're still figuring out the color of our skin, and that we all are the same, and yet we're still so divided. And so that's how I see it. I mean, I've just seen little glimpses. I do hope that can happen. It can happen. It's just a question of, we need to reach kind of that tipping point where enough people wake up and go, oh, I'm not living in this matrix. I don't have to live in this conditioned program where this is exactly what I do and this is how I follow orders.
Yeah.
And I don't mean orders from like the government. It's like an internal, the biology has been so structured around the programs that we've been taught. And it's a very delicate beast to heal.
Well, I mean, to me, it all comes back to the fact that when we're able to relate, when we're able to touch and be touched, which I do think that the aspect of landscape that with our biology is necessitates that we have that reciprocal flow with our surroundings, even if it's just seeing a branch of a tree moving. We're used to seeing something along those lines all the time. For us to feel settled. I mean, I personally notice how just going to the woods or something, that is immediately I'm in another space. There's and what's happening is it's like having a person that smiles and nods or gives me a hug or talks in a very welcoming way. You see those, you're getting cues from your surroundings that are basically like that. They're saying welcome. They're saying, you're here, you're with us, you're part of this. It's not necessarily, you don't have to think that the tree has an intelligence and is talking to you, whether you want to think that or not. But like this stuff happens on a very visceral level that you do feel. And so those kind of, but that's just one of many kinds of cues. The fact that we're basically shut down and not able. So the regulation thing is a consequence of the fact that we're able to touch and be touched. And the sabotage is that, we are not able to do that. We're not able to open to feel. And if we do feel, we recoil and
it's scary. Like it's a scary thing. 100%, that nature is, well, we are it.
Right? This
so
is nature too. This body.
That if someone has never considered that, I think it's an important place to start. Because again, we've been industrialized, we've been domesticated, so we have forgotten that we are actually part of the organism of this planet and the universe. So that's number one. Number two, yes, there's a reason why when we go out and we're connecting in a conscious way, I'm always looking at this tree, that's where I'm looking.
Okay.
That the branches, there's wind. Like I can't see the air, but there's a movement.
You can see the traces of it. Yeah.
Exactly. There's the clouds and they're shifting. But here's the thing: if someone is shut down or dissociated or in anxiety, they ain't looking at that, because that is a level of social engagement that they don't have capacity for. And so that's one piece. And then another interesting piece, because I know that a lot of people will listen to this and they don't have these beautiful trees and nature the way you might in your backyard. And I've noticed with my students, Like I have so many plants in my house, like tons and tons of
Yeah.
them. And always when I'm with my groups over time, we will have at least a few people say, this is so strange. And they usually live alone, because a lot of people are living alone, not just because of the current crises, but they live alone. They're not partnered. But they'll say, wow, like my plants are doing way better. It's true. Like I have pictures of my students' plants that were once dead and now they're alive. And they didn't do anything differently, but their system is more regulated and they're attuning to their, even though it's their box of a home, the bit of life that is in their home, and that organism feels it. And I think that, I mean, if that isn't enough of a anecdotal evidence piece to show that we as humans have the potential to change nature, I mean, there it is. And you know, so there's the people that have the plants and they notice, shit, I'm not killing them anymore, they're thriving. And then there's others who are all of a sudden craving plants in their home, and they're going out and they're buying them and they're tending them. And if you have plants, you know that you can't just water them on a schedule, right? You have to water them based on the environment, the time of year. Every plant's different. That's like the baby. It's attuning to a living organism and listening. So I think there's so many ways that we can reconnect to that, even if we don't have the luxury of, you know, the ocean and mountains that I have here in Vancouver.
I mean, I think it's fascinating with the houseplant example.
Yeah.
Because, you know, at first I thought you were primarily, I mean, perhaps you were, but I thought you were primarily indicating that these people energetically had boosted the liveliness of these plants, so they're flourishing. But then it became clear that what you were saying about attunement, so these people being more well, they probably were just more sensitive to the needs of their plants on maybe quite an obvious level, like that.
I think it's both. I think it's the energy, because when we are, you know, again, we forget we are electric beings, you know, that's how our nervous system works. And so when we have more regulation, a few things happen. We attune better to ourselves, so then we attune better to our environment. Many people will even say, oh, wow, I have an urge to clean my house. That's never happened before. I have an urge to prepare food in a way that's different. And I'm not telling them to do this. This is just an impulse that's coming out. So there's that regulation because they're attuning better. But then as you become more attuned, it's because you're becoming more regulated at the nervous system level, and the energy around the organisms that are alive feel it. It's the same with pets.
Yeah.
Man, I growing up in the animal hospital that my parents had, and literally when I was little, it was in our house for a while. And then I became young. As I was older, I would work for them. And it was so clear that the nervous, frantic dogs, usually dogs and sometimes cats, you could just see it in the owner. You know, it's like it was out of this world. And as I've gotten to know more people in this work, sometimes pets will take on the illness of the owner because they just do. They're these energetic beings, and it might be the only sense of connection that owner has. And we can transfer illnesses to people. It's a way of, it's one of the fawning responses. It's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn.
Right.
And that fawning can happen in that way. And it happens even in homes with children, where a child will intuitively, in a weird way, get sick because they know, if I'm sick and meek, my parent will have something to take care of. Yeah. It's a very interesting thing. So yeah, energy is huge. Regulation is huge. It all connects to the same pot, so to speak.